you come sit right here for me and feel it. There you are, become shy. I'm gonna walk around with my food.
Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I'm Tony Lewis Jr. I will be opening up this amazing event tonight with the Am I a Citizen campaign, which is a mantra, an initiative to push for the clemency or pardons of 100,000 Americans. As we all know, we have so many people languishing away in our federal prison system. And so tonight's conversation will be with three formerly incarcerated folks. We got some great elected officials. We have some stellar influencers and entertainers and needle movers and ceiling pushers, everything you can name with us tonight. Um, I want to start off by really bringing to focus like why we're here. My father was locked up for 34 years, and I remember every election around this time as a family member of somebody incarcerated. All you could think about was when the outgoing president or when the term was ending, that the president of the United States would potentially release a list and your family member would be on that. And I want us to really, really think about all of the thousands of American families that are right now thinking about that same thing. My heart goes out to them. I know where they are. And so tonight we want to talk about those families. We want to talk about our incarcerated folks that they need to be reunited with. But then we also want to talk about the beautiful people that have paid their debt to society and came home and made incredible contributions to their community. So I'm going to give our panelists right quick an opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with Paul Winestock, and then we can just go down the line and then we'll get into some questions.
Yes, I'm Paul Winestock, Director, CEO of Saving Our Next Generation, working with return to citizens at risk and others.
Rita Gray with Life After Release, Director of Operations, also working with returning citizens.
Dr. Ron Garrett, Director of Reentry Health Services and Supports for Metalworks Behavioral Health.
Okay, welcome everybody. All right, so Rita, I want to start with you. One of the things, and the reason I say that first, of course, is ladies first. But more importantly, I think in this conversation around returning citizens, the male point of view, the male perspective is often highlighted much more than the female perspective. And in my work as a reentry professional, reentry expert over the past 24 years, what I'm very clear on is that this process impacts women, in my mind, in an even more detrimental way. So could you talk a bit about what has your reentry process been like, and what have been some of the barriers that you faced since returning to the community?
Thank you, Tony. What I would say is one of my challenges was dealing with the halfway house in the reentry sector, not getting as much support that we need. And again, you expressed the main thing. We as women, we get discredited, right? And the system was never designed for us. So with it not being designed for us, it was never to work in our favor when we came home. So being able to advocate for women like myself who were gone, and making sure that our voices are one now, being heard, two, that they're being acknowledged and awareness has been brought to it. The other challenge that I faced was during the incarceral system and coming home was being able to reconnect with my family. So those were the barriers where none of the halfway house reentry was actually helping us reunify that. So those were the challenges that I faced. But outside of that, coming into this space, being able to bring more awareness and be able to work with women through Life After Release and other organizations I've been a part of has been a better experience, because then I can help them navigate through the experience of what I've done.
Okay, awesome. And I appreciate that. And thank you for your work and all of your sisters in the movement. That's been so helpful in trying to help reunite people. And I do want to raise up Mrs. Michelle West's name, in the beginning of this, so we can make sure we free Michelle West. Paul, as an entrepreneur and as a community pillar, can you speak a bit about as it relates to a potential pardon or clemency on behalf of somebody like yourself. We know you've done great things and made incredible strides, but what do you foresee in terms of opportunities that you can't obtain currently that will happen if you were able and other people like you were able to receive a pardon from the President of the United States?
Yes, one was actually me being able to travel in certain states. You know, I couldn't go to certain places because I'm a convicted felony, and also, you know, just jobs and things of that nature was very hard on me. So, you know, I had to work hard to become an entrepreneur. So those are a couple of things. And then also I have had conversations with returning citizens that I have worked with that basically they were speaking about, you know, voting and housing and things of that nature that they actually, you know, could not do because they were returning citizens and things of that nature.
And so, thank you for that, Paul. And Dr. Garrett, one of the things I want you to speak to, we know how stifling, right, how limited sometimes having a criminal conviction can be, and particularly here, and not just here in Washington D.C., but all across this country. Um, Having being a convicted felon can in some ways put economic ceiling on folks, right? And we know when people remain in poverty, we know it can have other physical and mental health impacts. Could you speak to that piece? Like, what have you seen and what have you worked with in terms of folks that have been in so many ways traumatized by the inability to become a part of the whole and trying to navigate reentry while not being able to access the proper housing or employment or entrepreneurial opportunities?
So Tony, one of the things that society really needs to look at is to understand that the root cause of 75 to 80% of all incarcerated individuals has to do with undiagnosed trauma, substance use disorder, and behavioral health care not being available to them while incarcerated, being undiagnosed. When individuals are coming back to the community, one of the things that contributes so much to the high rate of recidivism is that people are incarcerated and locked away in these jail cells for the crime that they may have committed, but no one ever deals with the root cause for being in that environment in the first place. So what I have seen is individuals coming home really still at this, after serving 10 years, 15 years in prison, in some cases being ill prepared to actually assimilate and join and be a part of the economic process of our country.
Yeah, I think about a lot about, you know, in the call for commutations or clemency. Many times we're like hyper focused on people that are currently incarcerated. I know that there's about 18,000 pardon applications on the president's desk right now. Um, but it's also, of course, so many people that have returned and done so many great things. So this question is really for any of you who want to take a stab at it. If you could talk to President Biden currently about his power, his executive power given to him by the Constitution to pardon Americans for certain crimes, what would you say to him?
I'm gonna give it a whirl. So, first of all, there are hundreds of thousands of individuals currently incarcerated that actually have developed a higher level of integrity and in character than many of our political leaders today. So, with that said, individuals who have, I believe that looking at a person's institutional record and the things that they have accomplished while incarcerated should have a lot more to do with being considered for pardon and clemency than the nature of the offense, because the nature of the offense is never going to be able to change. But a human being that has a desire to come back home and be a father, be a mother, be a community leader, they can put in the hard work during the time that they're in prison and make the necessary changes in their behavior to be a productive citizen. And they deserve a second chance.
And just to piggyback off what he's saying, I feel as though that, you know, we have been incarcerated. We did our time. We should be able to come home and be judged as a new individual and be able to regain our constitutional rights. So with that being said, it's a lot of us that's doing a lot of positive things in the community that's helping a lot of individuals out. And we should be, looked at in a different way and be accepted like ordinary citizens is. Most of us pay taxes and things of that nature. And, we need our second, chance back into society.
Agreed on both left and right. And my 2 cents to add into that is having a conversation with President Biden is letting him know that you can also be in the same situation, right? And so we are not the crime that was committed. We are the individual. And seeing us as a person and not a number is where they continue to let us fall into that category of you are not who you are. You are not who they say you are. We are now who we are, and because of who we are. And our record should not define on what our past is. Let us move forward in the future and just let us be the greatness that we are.
Yeah, I think about so many people that I've been connected to that have been formerly incarcerated or that are currently incarcerated. And, people have been held to account. People have paid their debt to society. But I think about the whole of the community, like how much further we could be in our communities if people were really, really given the opportunity to participate fully, and how much that would increase public safety. But more importantly, how much people would be able to set examples for those behind them. So, Rita, I want to start with you on this question about family impact or family reunification. And I know, when you came home, your daughter graduated college, right? And just her to be able to continue on, even in your incarceration, y'all stayed bonded and connected. And she was able to complete college, and I thought that was beautiful. So can y'all speak about though the family impact of people not fully being able to become a part of the whole and compete, and how much children deal with when their parents are incarcerated, and then when they come home. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Actually, my daughter is here. She's sitting on the front row right now,
Oh,
waving
what's
her
up?
hands up.
Congratulations. Yeah, sure. I was on that phone with your mommy. That's all right. Congratulations.
So thank you. And thank you for helping me in that process back in May, you as well as the gentleman that's sitting here. And so what I would say is family unification is very important. And so they continue to try to break those barriers down. It's already hard enough for parents who are incarcerated that you are missing milestones in your children's lives. But to come home and try to rebuild that, and for them to continue to try to break that down, it's harmful, right? It's hurtful. And it's not only harmful for us as a parent, because we're older, we can kind of deal with some of those barriers. But a child doesn't understand that when the stability has already been taken once, right? Or the trust factor or the loyalty, or knowing that I have my mom, but I have her only for parts of me because of the freedom. And so to piggyback a little on what Paul said, with the partners, letting us be free. We're not able to travel to certain countries. We're not able to do certain things. So when you're being bounded and held back, even though you've served your time, it's like you're still serving your time until you are completely free of that. So I'm grateful that my daughter and I have a wonderful bond. This is my little best friend. I always call her my little best friend, right? And so in the midst of that, she's taught me, she's helped me, she's guided me. Anything that I go to, she is very supportive. I'm grateful for that, because I see friends and family who don't have that type of relationship. And so I just want people to mimic what we have, to be able to just know that your child is not going to always see you as the person or the crime that you committed, but see you as that parent who raised them.
Hey, thank you, Rita. We're about to the great governor of the state of Maryland, Wes Moore, is standing by. So we're gonna bring the governor on. So, Governor Moore, how are you, sir?
I'm blessed. I was loving that conversation, though.
Nah, for sure, man. We appreciate you for being here, taking time to be with us, man. We really, really appreciate it. I want to start right at, you did something monumental. You for cannabis, you issued 175,000 cannabis pardons, right? Can you talk to us about not only why you did that, right? We know Maryland legalized marijuana, but like when you did that, what do you want to happen, right? What do you want the collateral damage in a positive way to be from the action that you took?
Well, it was interesting because back in the same year that I won governor, we actually had cannabis on the ballot. So the people had a say. And so the people voted overwhelmingly that I think by 70% that they wanted to have a recreational cannabis market inside of our state. So I knew when I was coming in, I knew our goal was to make sure that we had the smoothest, the safest, and the most equitable cannabis rollout, recreational cannabis rollout in the country. And by pretty much all accounts, everyone says that's exactly what Maryland has done. I'm really proud of what that's happened. We have 174 new social equity cannabis licenses. So that's now people who are now entering into the industry. A lot of them are minority-owned businesses, Black entrepreneurs, et cetera, who now have cannabis licenses. So we're using it as a way to actually address the racial wealth gap and create more equity inside of the market. But at the same time, I knew this. We have a new cannabis market in our state that is now a new $1 billion market, by the way. But I got people who still can't find a job because who can't get a barber's license because of a misdemeanor cannabis charge. That I have people who couldn't get student loans because of a misdemeanor cannabis charge. So basically we said you cannot celebrate the benefits of legalization if you do not address the consequences of criminalization. Because this has been something that's been used as this weight on our communities for so long. And so I was like, listen, if we're going to do it, let's do it. Yeah. And so it wasn't just about the legalization or the decriminalization, but it was about saying we've got to stop punishing people for something that's no longer even illegal in our society anymore. And so that was the big push that we had when we said, when I signed the largest mass pardon for cannabis convictions in the history of this country, $175,000, a unique power that the governor has, hence also why elections have consequences and make sure we're electing the right people to sit in these seats. But it goes back to this idea of now we have people who can enter into who can actually go get jobs. We have people who can actually go get benefits and student loans and government contracts. One of the people who's still with me when I signed the mass pardon was a guy named Shiloh. The only thing that Shiloh had on his record was a misdemeanor cannabis charge. That was all he had on his record. And Shiloh for years has not been able to find steady employment because he's had to mark that on his record the whole time. In fact, Shiloh was telling me about one job. He had a job. He found a dream job, a job he really enjoyed. They fired him on day 2 because he couldn't pass a background check. Like, this is so fundamentally unfair. And so we just knew that if we were going to move forward and have a real conversations about getting people back into a workforce, getting people opportunities to go into education, getting people opportunities to get government contracts, you had to remove the arbitrary barriers that continue to hold people back. And so that's why I'm really proud of the fact that Maryland, Maryland has led the charge on that. And the administration takes it seriously.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate that. And as I heard you frame out what was happening for people that had these misdemeanor cannabis charges, I just think about all of the people that I work with in my career that they may not have a marijuana charge, it may be a cocaine charge or a gun charge or other things. But the reality of it is, and we know most of those people are disproportionately Black, particularly here in DC and in the state of Maryland, but across the country, right? And so what do you think we need to do? And I know the government, we have to have incremental steps, right? But moving forward, right? How do we get to a point on a national level where what you did out of Annapolis, right, out of the State House, that the White House can become more focused on restoring people for the point of increasing the likelihood that families will be stable, that public safety will be impacted, that our states all across the country will just do better because people will have opportunity. Can you speak to that?
I think there's a few things we have to do. One is we actually have to have a real focus on making sure that we're not treating every sentence like it's a life sentence. Because part of the problem that we have is that, everybody's going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to need second chances. And the thing is, we know that for a lot of people who are coming up in a lot of communities, like, listen, I had handcuffs on my wrist by the time I was 11 years old, right? Because I came up in a community that was over-policed and we knew it. So, but if we aren't going to be a society that believes in second chances, and if we aren't going to be a society that actually creates pathways for second chances, we're going to continue being a society that has these massive divides and actually losing out on the promise and the hope and the brilliance of so many people who've gotten caught up and continue suffering the consequences for something that happened so many years before. But the thing we have to remember too is a lot of those things that are keeping people from entering back into society, A lot of those things that we're fighting about when it comes to cannabis laws and all this kind of stuff and second chances, those are laws, i.e. Congress passed them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's why when we're coming to election season, and listen, we got 5 days in a wake up until this election. We need to make sure we're running through the tape on it. And we need to make sure we have people who are sitting in those seats who actually see us, who hear us, who understand us, and who know our stories and actually believe in our promise. But when we do that, it's not just about the president, right? We can be all in for Kamala, which I personally am. And we can be all in to say we need a president of the United States who's going to fight for these issues the same way that Kamala says that she is going to make sure that we are going to decriminalize cannabis federally. But you know what the president cannot do? Do that on her own.
That's right.
Got to have Congress, right? And so that's why, what about the Senate seats? What about the House seats? You cannot just talk about what's going to happen on the presidency and think that's going to be everything needs to be done, because you could have a president who has all the right ideas, but if they can't get it through the House and the Senate, then it's just it's ideas.
And Governor, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to. You talked about there's a Maryland Senate race, right? And I want to share a quick story about Angela Alsobrooks. This is years ago when she was the attorney in PG County, and I went to be the keynote speaker at a graduation for a diversion program that was revolutionary in PG County and in our region, that she started, where young men who got incarcerated, who got convicted, and it was a way for them to go through a program where they didn't get the felony on their record, and they got life skills and they got social support and all these things. And when I went to be the keynote speaker, you know what she told me, where she got that idea from? When she was a law student, she had went out to San Francisco and visited with Kamala Harris, and this is when Kamala Harris was a senator at this time. That's how far back this was. Right. But I'm framing that out to say I want people to understand too that like the governor shared, your local elections are super important. And that you have people. I want you guys to start the research and understand that people ain't just get here. People put in hard work to be on the ballot, and for the returning citizens and on this call, I want you to, for the ones that can vote, and in this area you can vote, in other states across the country, utilize your right to vote. But could you speak to how you feel about Angela Alsobrooks and what she means to us in this area?
I remember when I endorsed Angela over a year ago. And I endorsed her early in the process. And when it was a crowded primary, and people told me, they're like, listen, normally they're like, I know you're new to politics, but they're like, but sitting governors generally do not get involved in open Senate seats. And I was very clear. I said, I appreciate all the advice, but I'm supporting Angela Alsobrooks. She was the person who, and it's both because of who she is and her track record and what she's brought to the table. But it's also really about this moment. Like, I don't think we can just be kind of like mealy mouthed on it in this moment. Yeah. I think we have to be bold, and I think we need leaders who are going to be bold and actually push to get big things done. And push to not just make sure that we're strong on the defensive, but that we're strong in the offensive. And I know if we can actually get a combination of having someone who can be a visionary leader like Kamala Harris, and we can make sure that we have a Senate that can back her up, which will include Angela Alsobrooks. We've been working like crazy to make sure that Angela needs to win. But if we can get that combination together, I'm telling you, all the things that we are trying to fight for, making sure we can raise a minimum wage. So gone should be the days when people are just working jobs, in some cases, multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. Making sure we can create wealth inside of our communities. And that includes things like creating more opportunities for people to be home buyers, and creating more opportunities for our entrepreneurs and our businesses to get the capital that they need in order to grow and thrive. Making sure we're removing all the arbitrary barriers that are keeping people from frames of employment. And that includes things like not giving returning citizens second chances at being supported, and both in society and also supporting their families. It means getting rid of things like the arbitrary barriers that we have for employment, things like, college degrees, where we have some of the best four-year colleges in America, in my state, and I love them and we would support them. But we got to end this lie that every single one of our people have to attend one of them in order to be economically successful. It's just not true. right? But if we can get leaders who can actually push for these kind of issues and get this work done, we are actually going to create a better society and a better future that sees all of us and not just some of us. But you cannot do it just because. You got to go and not just vote, but you got to go there and make sure you're not voting alone. Go out there and we do the work. We are going to win this thing. And that includes, yes, getting Angela Alsobrooks in the Senate and getting Kamala Harris in the White House.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Governor. Can I ask you one more question?
Of course.
One more question. I don't want it to be is not, and it's not putting you on the spot, but
What?
I do want to talk about the business community, right? And I know Maryland is booming. Businesses are coming, flocking, trying to get to Maryland, opening up things in Maryland.
Good.
If a lot of people may not get a pardon, people gonna have felonies on their records. Are we having conversations with our business leaders, our CEOs, about amending in some way hiring policies that will make it more likely for Marylanders, for Washingtonians, for Virginians, for people across our region to potentially be able to be gainfully employed in, because that leads to such stability, which impacts every other facet of life in our region. So could you speak to that?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up because especially in Maryland, the answer is absolutely. And I think there's two things that we're doing from a state perspective. One is the state needs to lead by example, right? The state can't tell people to do things that the state's not willing to do themselves. And so that means actually going and having full evaluations of all the laws that are sitting in place that are keeping people from entering into things like state jobs and local jobs and making sure we're removing those barriers. And you're seeing how it's actually working, because of all the job training work that we're doing, the trade programs, the apprenticeship programs, even for people who are incarcerated or recently released. You know, we have not doubled, we have not tripled, we've quadrupled the amount of apprenticeships and trade programs that we have in our state that's getting people into the workforce. And what's happened is the state was ranked 43rd in unemployment when I first took over as governor. Now, going on the 13th straight month in a row, Maryland has amongst the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country. Our unemployment rate is 2.9%, right? Because we're getting people back into the workforce. So the state has got to lead by example about things that we're doing to get people back working. But that also means when you lead by example, you have more influence to be able to encourage folks to do the right thing on their end. And so that means being able to work in concert with our private sector employers. That means work in partnership with our higher ed employers. That means working in partnership with our nonprofit employers. And by the way, in the state of Maryland, one of 5 employees in the state of Maryland is employed by a nonprofit organization, right? And so how are we then moving people and allowing them, giving them space and both incentives and also just pleading to them, letting them know it's the right thing to do, to say you've got to open up more opportunities for people to get second chances. When they get those things done, they can better support their families, they can better support their communities. And when that happens, we have a real chance of long-term economic growth for everybody.
Yeah, man. Governor Moore, listen, you are an inspiration in more ways than one, brother. I mean that. I will implore you to, as you move and matriculate through your state. I know you might visit your state prisons and jails, but I would love for you to visit FCI Cumberland, which is a federal prison in your state. My father was there for about 22 years, because I think it's important for leaders like you to be able to see what's going on and be able to lead and advise, hey, we should be doing more of this to prepare people for when they release. And if, like you said, if you're doing it with your state facilities, you can be the model for that. And we're grateful for your leadership and everything that you're doing, not only for the state of Maryland, but honestly for our country, man.
God bless
Thank you, sir.
Think about you. I really do.
God bless you, my man.
God bless you.
Appreciate you.
5 days in a wake up, y'all. 5 days in a wake up.
That's right.
Let's go get it.
Peace.
Thanks, man.
All right, everybody, we're going to transition. We're going to bring in the leader of Kairos, the great Michael Blake, and for his panel. And I want to thank Mike for his leadership across the board. I called Mike this morning on CNN doing this thing. Mike and we met through one of my best friends, Keyway Hughes, and was super impressed with Mike from the beginning. But as I learned more about all the things that he's doing and has done, he's a pillar, an incredible brother, and somebody that's really fighting and trying to open up doors. So without further ado, I want to share the stage with the great Michael Blake.
All right. I hate to disappoint. I am not the great Michael Blake, but unfortunately, he could not join us tonight. But my name is Brianna Shorten. I am here on behalf of Kairos Democracy Project, where we are doing the storytelling for Black and Brown tonight. Thank you so much for giving us the space to talk to some incredible folks out there doing the work in the field. So let's go ahead and bring in some of our panelists. We've got Michael Coiler, Dr. Carmen Johnson, Kenny Burns, Jermaine Coleman, also known as Mano. If we have them backstage, let's bring them on. All right, I think we have Michael Coiler backstage. Is Michael ready to go? All right, so let's actually shift gears for a moment. Oh, here we go. I see Michael now. Hey there, how you doing?
A supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. How you doing?
Very good, very
I'm
good.
doing great. I thought it was gonna be some hard leg fella named Michael, and I looked up and it's you.
You got lucky
Yes,
today.
I
What
already
can I
won,
say?
and we ain't even started. How are
Fantastic.
you?
I'm doing really good, very good. We would love for you to just give a quick introduction of who you are to folks tuning in. And then I've got a couple questions for you. And as the rest of our panelists come in, we'll bring them on screen.
Hail, Michael Cowher, world famous, world renowned, often talked about, alleged comedian, gentleman and a scholar, intellectual giant in a pool of mental midgets, and a connoisseur of fine haberdasheries. In other words, I'm an artist. I'm full of it, and people give me money to just be me. So I write films and books, children's books. I got a new children's book out right now called Little Bobby White, about a little black boy who always wins because he always chooses to do the right thing. I call it Bobby White, but the kid is black. Okay, there it is. It's gonna be a bestseller too, because it's not about color, it's about the story. And the story is a story of being good for goodness sake. And we don't teach that to our kids anymore. We don't teach them anything. What we do is we give them a device and send them over there in the corner, and we come back 8 years later, don't know why they got guns and pistols and drugs and things. So Lil Bobby White is kicking butt and taking names. I do comedy everywhere. I have a morning show on YouTube called The Michael Collier Morning Show. Now, we've only done 973, so I understand if you haven't had a chance to catch it. But 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on YouTube. I started in Chicago in the projects, ended up doing 9 years of comedy on Venice Beach, and this six weeks ago, we just shot, after 40 years in the business, my first 1 hour special, shot it live on Venice Beach where I started. Just dropped my first sitcom that I'm the star of. They actually made the heathen, the pastor. So I'm Pastor Michael in a new sitcom called Highly Favored. My deacon is Rodney Perry. My wife is Kiki Shepherd. Melanie Camacho is one of the church women, and I'm hireable. I do weddings, divorces, Passover, hangover. I do a party in a phone booth if you promise to call. That's all. What you get?
Wow, that's amazing. Sounds like you're busy, up to some good
Yeah.
stuff.
I'm very busy, and that's not even a third of what I'm doing, but that's some of it.
We love to hear it. So thank you for joining us in this discussion today. A very, very important topic of clemency and pardons in general. So we'd love to hear from you. What is your connection to this space? What is your why for doing work in this area?
My what?
Your why.
Well, you know what? I've always been concerned about men getting a fair deal, getting a fair shake. And a lot of times we don't. And I love the people who stand up for folks who get put in and aren't guilty, and who fight to make people out, and for people who've done their time so they can come on out too and have a nice life and not have to go back. I'm down for smashing recidivism. And for like 14 years, once a month, I would go into prisons and take 5 comedians, and we do an hour and a half concert free every month called Comics Go to Jail, because we want to remind inmates that you're only as locked up as your mind tells you are. As long as you're free in your mind. Your body could be locked down, but you could already be planning what your great future is going to be. And then I have a great friend named Banky Pounds, who comes on my morning show every Thursday. And he has a part called Bankology. And all he talks about is he talks to brothers who have been in prison and how they come out and how they're motivational speakers and changing their lives, turn their lives around. He a cold brother, Banky Pounds. So I try to do whatever I can to try to help in making sure that the recidivism goes away. People don't come out and it's a revolving door. They go right back in. We want people to know that there's a life out here. There's a life beyond what they've done. And you're not the person that was there. You're the person that was your body was held, but your mind and your spirit is somewhere else. Banky Pound said he was in prison for 33 years, and for 33 years he never had one good day. And he didn't come out bitter. He didn't come out feeling like somebody owes him something. He came out knowing he had to give something to the world. Now he's one of the coldest motivational speakers. I think he got about 560,000 followers, and he is awesome. So I'm very interested in this arena. Anything I can do to help, that's what I'm here for.
Amazing. And what can folks that are tuning in, potential partners that would, maybe be on the line here, what can we do to support you?
Well, everything about supporting me is about going to the Michael Kaya Morning Show, because that's like the field office where I talk about all the different things we're doing. Like when we shot our special, I'm down with giving to the homeless. That's my big thing. So when I won Star Search for 100,000, I gave half to the homeless, and it did something to me. It lifted me in such a way that now I'm like a fiend about giving. I want to give, give, give. Whatever I give you, give a real meal to a homeless person and look in his face and see what happens. See if you don't see change. So I'm down for that. So when we did my special 6 weeks ago, one of the things we did is we got 1,986 bags that we're giving to homeless people. Okay, we've given out like 800 so far, and they have socks. Let me tell you something. Ain't nothing better for homeless people. They don't like nothing more than fresh socks and drawers. Okay, so we got socks, we got drawers, we got sweaters, we got them soups, them noodles you can heat up. I try to throw $10 in every bag I can for as far as I can, and then I love to go up and down the street and hand that bag to someone who really needs it. Matter of fact, there was this gorgeous sister with rainbow hair, and everything she had was in this one cart. I just saw her today when I was at the gas station. I had to stop my car, go in the trunk, make sure she had a real good bag, and give it to her. And to see the look of gratitude, especially when they see the food, when they look in and see food. I know like 2 weeks ago, I was in Winston-Salem, and this homeless dude, he was raggedy. This white dude was like, man, he looked like he had just clammed out of a pile of trash or something. And he was home thin and dirty and grungy. So I went over, right? I handed him a 20, right? And I think he thought maybe it's going to be a 1 or a 5 or something. And he took it obligatory. He took it because, well, somebody gave me something. Okay, it was a matter of fact. And then he looked at it and he looked back up and he looked at it and he started smiling like I'd really done something. And for him, it was something. So we don't know how much we influence people with little things we do. That dude walked a whole block, and I'm telling you, every 7 or 8 steps, he turned back and smiled. He waved and he walked him and he turned back. That meant more to me than $20 million. So I'm on a drive. I came to California to be a millionaire. But I got here and realized the world ain't about me. It's about me finding my brother. And until I find my brother, I don't find myself. But once I find my brother, then I'm home. So instead of trying to be a millionaire, I'm attempting to be a billionaire of being. I want to be the greatest human I could possibly be. So instead of trying to make a living, I want to live my making, and my making shall make my living. So I'm down for my sporty crown, for whatever y'all want to do to help get people there.
Looks like we lost him, unfortunately. Well, Michael, if you can hear us, we thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us. I am going to go ahead and bring in Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Brown, are you here with us?
Yeah, here. I'm here, waiting patiently. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to learn more about what is your connection to clemency and doing this work?
So I'm formerly incarcerated. So that should be the first thing that people know, that I won history and I made history as the first formerly incarcerated Black woman, or woman in general, to sit on the dais. So I definitely have a different perspective on everything. Every day of my life, I give back to fighting for clemency. I'm fighting for my sister Michelle West, who Tony spoke about earlier. I'm very close to her daughter and other sisters in this movement, including Rita, who's on. She and I are very close and do a lot of work together. I want to make sure that people understand that we never forget where we came from, and it's nothing about us without us. And so we do this work. We fight for every day of our life, and even at the dais, as a leader in the 15th largest city in the United States of America. My agenda is always second chance. My agenda is always formerly incarcerated. My agenda is always to uplift people that are behind the bars fighting for their freedom. To me, there is no such thing as a second chance. Give people the chances that they need, meet them where they are, allow them to progress in life and be better individuals, because they're going to be our neighbors. They are people who make the world go round. There's a lot of phenomenal brains, a lot of dreams, a lot of uh, business deals are behind those walls of incarceration. So it's very disheartening. Every day of my life that I wake up, I don't leave anywhere without wearing this bracelet. I don't know if people can see this, but this bracelet says Free Michelle West. It says Free Michelle West. I don't leave anywhere without wearing her bracelet. And so she's near and dear to my heart. But I've been in public service for about 9 months. I swore in December of 2023, and I've been unapologetically standing in my truth, and I intend to continue to do that.
Amazing. That's beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that there are, when you're returning to citizenship, and what do we need to do as a community to do a better job to support those that are coming back?
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for that question. Every day, like I said, every day of my life, we walk it, we talk it, and we are making solutions to move forward in this work. We need people at the table who have the actual lived experience. We are the experts. Indeed, we are. We need second chances. We need collateral consequences wiped away. We need that whenever people leave from incarceration, that they're able to just come back into society and be who they are. Be it if they're a mother, if they are a daughter, if they are a sister, if they are a grandmother. Incarceration wipes out the entire family. Now, I'm not leaving out the male counterparts for incarceration, but there is a different need for women. Unapologetically meeting women right where they are when they walk out. Some of them walk out with just the shoes they have on their feet and the clothes that they wore, that they were arrested in, or the clothes that they're coming home from state or federal prison. One thing I want people to understand is that a lot of times when people come home, so many things have changed in people's lives. Like if they've been gone for decades, they have to learn how to use an iPhone. iPhone wasn't out 2 decades ago. Learning how to use public transportation and just getting reacclimated back into society. But got to understand that a lot of times people don't want us at the table. So we build our own tables, and we continue to build those bridges for people to cross and sit at the table with us, so that we understand the trajectory and rewrite the narrative, and to dismantle and reimagine what a world could be like if you just give a person like myself, who made it from federal prison to delivering my daughter in federal prison, to walking into City Hall, being a leader in the 15th largest city, going, I think we're now the 14th largest city in the United States of America, Charlotte, North Carolina. So while I hear politicians come on, and I have the utmost respect for Maryland's mayor, it's just different when you actually have been in those handcuffs and shackles, when you walk every day of your life, and you know that that number 1056708 never leaves you, and it follows you everywhere you go. And then we have to teach people the language. We're not inmates. We're not ex-cons. We're not convicts. We are people. We are humans that just need an opportunity to rebuild our lives. And so because people don't give us those opportunities, we make those opportunities for ourselves.
Absolutely. So one more question I have for you is around family unification and how it's linked to returning to citizenship. What challenges do you think we're still facing in that space? And maybe even a little bit of an anecdote from your own experience.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely appreciate you saying that, because, my daughter is 30 years old. I have 2 daughters. One is 32, lives in Atlanta. The other one is 30 here, the one that I gave birth to in federal prison. So I've been home for 23 years. So a total of about 6.5 years, 7 years of federal incarceration, not including going in and out of the revolving door for recidivism because of the resources and having to check the box. But reunification is a top priority. I do have a program where I provide safe homes for women that are coming home from incarceration, making sure that they can connect with any family member that they have. A lot of times, the family members are only the women that they met inside of the walls of incarceration. And when I say we become family, we become family. We build together, we work together, we fight together, we dismantle together. And so, with that being said, I'll leave people with this. There is not any reason to give us a second chance. And so, because we know that we are deserving, just like anybody else, we create those second chances. We are going to be your neighbors. We are going to be people who you see in restaurants, out on social gatherings, even going to comedian shows like the young man that was on. And so, the best advice I can give someone is to actually open up a window of opportunity for people that are justice impacted, not second chance, just giving them a chance, giving them an opportunity, meeting them right where they are. And so I need to say this. I cannot, although people say that we need to be in politics, I won't stay in politics. This is my first term. I probably will run again. I want to be crystal clear and very honest and transparent. Politics is just what it is. And because I want to label myself as an elected official, as a public servant, and I'm a different type of candidate, I know my voice is needed. I know my strength is needed. I know my courage is needed. But for me, serving my nonprofit and the women that I meet behind the prison doors and those walls before they come home, I can do more for them, meeting them right where they are, giving them a hand up and not a hand out on this side of the wall versus being in politics. So I love that I won unanimously and that I won 90 something percent of the vote. And I won every single precinct, which really told people that we want to see something different, which really identifies with people that I'm really not a politician, that I've been doing this grassroots work, mobilizing on the ground, kicking ass and taking names for a very, very long time. I'm 53 years old, and I think I know who I am, and so there's no change in me, making me go alone to get along, and I'm not being brought soul to toe.
Amazing. Well, we would love to continue to support you in all that you're doing. If you could share with us how we can learn more about your nonprofit and how we can be supportive of the work you're doing.
Absolutely. So everything for me is beauty after the bars. If people can't remember that, because there's several organizations that are similar names, but I'm beauty after the bars on Instagram, Facebook, my entire platform. But the easiest thing would probably be just to Google Council Member Brown in Charlotte, North Carolina. But it is an honor and privilege to have my voice at the table, especially when there are other elected officials that don't have lived experience. As you can see, our conversations are totally different. We can talk about policy all day, every day. You can learn policy. But what elected officials don't bring to the table, what I bring is that lived experience. And so it is an honor and privilege to serve the men and women that are behind the walls of incarceration, knowing that they really have someone that is standing with them unapologetically and fighting for their freedom.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Brown, for joining us today. We really appreciate your voice and for sharing the space with us. And we look forward to following along with your work moving forward.
Absolutely. I'm going to stay on just to hear all the other amazing speakers. And thank you for doing such a great job moderating, working through the technical issues. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to sound out, but I'm still listening in. Okay.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. All right, next up, we are going to have a very quick discussion with two individuals that I'm excited to introduce you to. Can we please bring in Will Snowden and Justin Dews? And then we'll bring back Tony Lewis in a couple of minutes to talk with some of our other panelists that have joined us backstage. Just a quick intro. For both of these gentlemen. Will is the proud son of Billy Ray and Kay Snowden, who are not only Milwaukee public school teachers, but also taught Will why speaking up and speaking out is important. Will plays the cello, loves to dance, but isn't that good at it, and spends his professional time as a criminal defense lawyer director of the Juror Project, and law professor at Loyola University New Orleans College of Law. Will started his legal career as a public defender in New Orleans. Also joining us, we have Justin Dews. Justin is a counsel at the multinational firm King & Spalding, where he focuses on government, internal, and congressional investigations. He is currently serving as the chairman of New Jersey's Clemency Advisory Board, where he advises Governor Phil Murphy on grants of pardons and commutations. So thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first question for you is same as my last. What is your personal connection to clemency, and what is your why for continuing this work? Why did you choose this path?
So it goes back a few years. Prior to the job that I have now, I worked for a federal judge, Judge Joseph Greenaway. And one of the things that he did was every year he took his clerks to a federal facility, because his belief was, if I'm going to sentence somebody to time behind bars, we need to see what we're doing. Taking away someone's liberty, a fundamental right, is a weighty thing. You're not just impacting them, you're impacting their family, their community. So we need to make sure that what we're doing, that we understand what we are doing. And that stuck with me. Fast forward to when I began working for Governor Murphy when he was first elected in 2018. In 2017, his term started in 2018. I had the criminal justice portfolio in his office when I was a counsel there. And I remember day one just getting a stack of pardons and being told, advise. And having to go through and read applications of folks who may have made a mistake 5, 10, 15 years ago, and how it was still impacting them today. There's some folks who did things where even though they had a record, they were thriving afterwards. But the thing they wanted back beyond the opportunity for a job was their good name. They wanted the dignity that they believe it would afford them to have a pardon applied to them. And so that has stuck with me and something that I've carried with me in my role as chair of the Clemency Advisory Board.
Amazing.
I'm happy to chime in terms of my connection with this work. It starts with why I became a public defender, and particularly why in Louisiana. As many of you know, Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the country. We lock up, simply put, we just lock up too many Black people. And I wanted to be a public defender to help change that reality on the foundation that the quality of representation a person should receive shouldn't depend on how much money they have access to. As it relates to clemency and kind of zooming out to the conversation of restoring rights to people with felony convictions and formerly incarcerated people, I come to this work to try to restore jury rights to people with felony convictions, to really promote constitutional juries. If we think about juries being a fair cross-section of our community, I strongly believe that people with felony convictions, if they're home, are part of that community and should have a conversation in deciding what should accountability look like for their fellow neighbors who are being accused of crimes. There's this myth out there when we're having conversations about restoring jury rights to people with felony convictions. There's a myth that if people with felony convictions get on juries, they're going to automatically vote not guilty. But there are studies and mock juries that have actually disproven that myth and have actually demonstrated that the value that people with felony convictions add to the deliberation process is something that cannot be replicated through other identity groups. And so when we think about clemency and we think about the restoration of rights, my connection to that effort is specifically and squarely within how do we ensure people who are coming home, people who used to have who have felony convictions but used to be incarcerated, can still be part of this democratic process that is the jury. There are so many studies that talk about when we restore more rights to people with felony convictions, that actually reduces their likelihood of committing another crime. And my work is trying to ensure that the right to serve on a jury is included in that restoration process.
Amazing. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about this, about coming home, and what do you think is missing in our current system as far as on a local or even national level how can we do better by people that are, doing their best to get back into society? Where are there gaps, and what changes do you maybe hope to see moving forward?
Well, I'll let you. I went first last time, so I'll let you take this one first.
Thanks. I think part of the gaps is really making sure people understand what rights are they going to be able to have access to. Not every state allows people with felony convictions to vote. Not every state allows people with felony convictions to serve on juries. But in the states where those rights have been restored, there have not been enough kind of educational campaigns to make sure people understand that that type of disenfranchisement no longer exists in their state. So I think one of the things that is missing is perhaps a Bill of Rights for formerly incarcerated people to say, hey, you may have thought that these rights were taken away from you, but here's how it actually applies, or here's how it actually works in your jurisdiction. So they know how they actually can be civically engaged. And in the event that they don't have those rights being restored, whether it's voting or serving on juries, perhaps getting them connected with efforts and advocates to help restore those rights so they can be part of the community in that way of civic engagement. Other things that I think are missing, at least in Louisiana, and this applies, I think, across the country. There's an organization in New Orleans called the First 72 Plus, and they really know that those first 3 days after being incarcerated can put somebody on the right track or the wrong track. And so what the organization does is it helps ensure that they have access to a state ID, they have access to housing, because those two things are going to help them get on the right track. And so thinking about how we are supporting people coming home in those first 3 days is absolutely important. And in some jurisdictions, we're just missing providing that support.
Justin, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I think is important is to give folks the full picture of what clemency is. I think a great way to think about it is someone explained to me, and I thought it was fantastic. They said, a pardon forgives, expungement forgets. So you get a pardon and you get your rights back, but your record still exists. People can still see it in many instances. So I think what we need to tell folks, especially folks who are granted pardons, is that they should take the next step. If your state has an expungement process, they should go through that process to make sure they are free and cleared of everything. Some states have automatic expungement processes. I want to shout out Pennsylvania. Folks, and this came into law last year and went into effect in 2024. If you receive a pardon, your record is automatically expunged. That is a very forward-leaning position that Pennsylvania has. And so for the folks in Pennsylvania, that's great. But for everyone else, I just want them to be mindful. Like there is that extra step folks need to take. And I want to make sure that we educate individuals, especially folks who are granted pardons, that there's more that should be done to make sure that they are totally made whole.
Absolutely. And I want to piggyback off of that comment about Pennsylvania and some of the work they're doing there. What other states can we look to for guidance? And if there are none, you can tell us that. But if you have some perspective on who's kind of getting it right, obviously we've got work to do, but who's making progress in the right direction?
Well, I'm going to shamelessly shout out New Jersey in this. Oftentimes in many states where there is sole discretion for the governor to determine who is given clemency, it becomes a political process, right? Who do you know? Who can get to him? Who can talk to him? And what Governor Murphy did was take it out of, by giving it to a board, a group of neutral arbiters who were not chosen because of their political connections, but because their knowledge of the issue or their care about criminal justice, to make more objective decisions or rather recommendations to him. It does create a fairer process. It's not who you know. It's simply, folks are looking at it with more open eyes, because there's nothing that they can get out of it other than making sure that folks are treated fairly. So I think to the extent that there are states that currently just leave it solely in the hands of the governor, they should look to having a neutral arbitrator help the governor with those recommendations.
Awesome. Any thoughts on that, Will, or do we feel like he covered it well?
I think he covered it well.
Awesome. Fantastic. I want to thank you both for joining us for this discussion. was very insightful and definitely brought up some things I'd never even considered or known about that are facing our communities right now. So thank you so much for your time. If you want to let us know how we can stay connected with you, or if there's some causes that are relevant to this work that you want to share, we'd love to hear about it.
Sure, I'll share. So the nonprofit that I run is called the Juror Project, and if you're on social media, if you're on Instagram, it's at Juror Project, and you can keep up to date with all the things we're doing around juries, including advocating for people with felony convictions to have those rights restored in jurisdictions where they currently don't have it.
And I will say, if you're someone, if you know somebody, or if you yourself have a conviction in the state of New Jersey, please take a look at whether you can apply. I think anyone can apply for clemency, but we have special categories for expedited consideration if you meet certain criteria. So please take a look to see if you are eligible for clemency in an expedited manner. It doesn't matter how long ago the offense was. We're taking a look at everybody who applies that has an offense in the state, and you can find information for that at nj.gov/clemency. That's nj.gov/clemency. We are constituted until the governor's term ends next year, so we want to make the most of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those resources with us. We look forward to following along and supporting your work moving forward. Thanks again for joining us. And we're going to go ahead and turn it back over to Tony Lewis, who is going to introduce a few of our next panelists and guide the next discussion.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna have our next panel. We can bring our next guest up. I'm excited to have this conversation to get these illustrious panelists' views on some of this conversation. And thank you to the last two panelists. I think having sort of that legal framework is certainly very, very important. And shout out to states like Pennsylvania and New Jersey that are doing phenomenal things around this, and hopefully our federal government can take heed to what's going on in some of those states. And when they look at the data and can see the proven success, and when you have people to be fully restored, how impactful that can be to the community at large. And I also want to take this time to raise up a name, James Kirby Burks, somebody that I know is up for clemency currently. Him and his family is very aligned with mine, and his family has been fighting for his freedom in the same way that so many people have been fighting for Michelle West. So I want to shout out to Kirby Burks, and hopefully, he'll be reunited with his family in the near future. So are we ready for our next guest? Are they ready? Joined by the King of Brooklyn. What's up, man?
What's up, bro? How you been,
I'm
man?
good, man. I'm outstanding, man. How you? What's up with you, bro?
Man, I'm good. I'm blessed.
Hey, I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad you're here, man. No, for real, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I want to jump in real quick, right? What we talking about specifically tonight is clemency, right? And mainly
Right.
on a federal level. We know that Joe Biden is leaving office, and we look forward to him reuniting families all across this country as he exits.
Right.
We know that you have been formerly incarcerated.
Hmm.
Can you speak to obviously you came out of the New York State
Right.
system, but still you got friends and family members that have been in the feds. Can you give let me hear your thoughts, bro, on what you feel about clemency and how important that is to communities like the ones we come from?
You know, one of my closest friends, like probably, we've been friends all our lives. We actually brothers. He did 22 years in the state of New York and actually got clemency.
Amazing.
So I'm familiar with it on a state level. Um, I got a plethora of friends, that's been in the feds, that's in the feds. My own blood brother just came home from the feds last year.
Yeah.
I'm in it. You know, I'm
Sure enough.
still going to the courts for my guys. You know, I'm still trying to play my part and hold them down as much as I can. But yeah, one of my closest brothers, my brother Sino, he actually got clemency after 22 years.
No, that's a and man. How long you been home? 15 years?
I've been home since '03. So
Oh,
what's that?
21.
21 years, yeah.
21
That-
years. So
yeah,
you being home 21 years, all the amazing things that
yeah,
you've done. I'm gonna bring it to
right,
Mano now, right?
right.
Um, I know what's your governor, Hochul, Kathy,
Yeah,
Rachel Hochul.
Hochul,
Yeah, what's her
Kathy Hochul.
Kathy Hochul? Have you
Yeah.
had any conversations with her administration about Mano getting clemency? Is that something
No,
that you're
no,
interested in?
no, I haven't. But I've been talking to some people about getting my record expunged.
Okay. And in
You
New
know,
York, and in the state of New York, that is
in the state
possible.
of New York, it is possible.
Okay, because
It
it's
is
like
possible.
here in DC, we can't seal any records, and there's no expungement, right, for any
Hmm.
any felony convictions. But I think that, and the reason I asked you the question, not to be in your business, but more so, I think it's important for. I think a lot of times when returning citizens, the people that have been formerly incarcerated, are able to become successful, right?
Right.
As such as yourself, it's like, I'm you good, you doing
That's
your thing,
true.
right? But
Right.
I think it's still important for you are an example of
Right.
redemption. You're an example of reentry. You
Hmm.
inspire a lot of other dudes. And so
Right.
for you, person like you to take that step, because you are deserving of that. You understand what
Hmm.
I'm saying? You
Indeed.
deserving of for people to say, yeah, you made that mistake, but you didn't rebuild your life and inspired a lot of other people's lives. So
Right.
I think it's important that folks like you, man, take those steps because if you do it, then I think it will open up doors for a lot of other people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, and then you know, and I've been able to vote, and I've been able to do everything that I wanted to do as a citizen. So it kind of felt like, you know, it didn't matter.
Yeah, right.
But I was approached about it a few months ago, and I had to go through some steps to get my rap sheet, and so we actually in the process
Yeah.
of right now of getting that expunged.
Now that's awesome to hear. Can you so coming from where we come from, right? And I know a lot of guys that we grew up with around, a lot of people feel like elections don't matter, right?
Right.
Because the lifestyle in the subculture we from, a lot of times you don't feel like it matters, right? But
That's a
as you've
fact.
ascended and now, we are doing different things and contributing members of society, we kind of can
Right.
see more clearly why that stuff matter. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, I mean, listen, the general feeling in the ghetto is that it's we gonna always be in pain, right? It doesn't matter who, Democrat, Republican. That's the general feeling, but it's a wrong thought. I think that it matters to a certain extent. It's just about the information that we have, right? You know, when we talk about this election, I was at some sort of this event where the temperature was about back in Kamala, but I said that a lot of the information that we got in the hood may be wrong, but why they don't take you know precedent in putting the right information out, because everybody in the hood think that Trump gave them that money.
Yeah, yeah, no
You
question.
understand? So the
Yeah, yeah.
disinformation and the misinformation, if it's done properly, it gets to us, and we like, man, I don't care. I'm voting for whoever gonna give me the PPP.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
see?
Yeah.
So that's the general feeling, because we already feel hopeless and we feel like it don't matter, But I've been trying to do my part as much as I can. I just did we just ran a campaign where I had a couple of my friends, I had Angela Yee, and I had I was approached by doing this. I had Jim Jones, Dave East, and we did these kind of commercials where we talked about, here's the states that if you off parole, you can actually vote.
Yeah, I
So the
saw that. Yep.
information, right? They need the information. So we was able to raise, we was able to raise that a little bit and get some people in there that didn't know that.
No, I appreciate that, man. Appreciate Capo, appreciate East, man. Definitely
Yeah,
Yee for y'all doing that. And we gonna hold
yeah.
on, man. I want you to stay with us, but we're gonna bring
Okay.
in the additional panelists real quick. Okay, so we got the queens here, still here in DC. Can the two new panelists? I see Rita. So can we introduce ourselves real quick?
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Laura Jones. I am the owner of ALM Freight, which is a third-party distributed service partner with Amazon. I also own, I guess you can say, the colloquy, Hey Girl, Hey, I have a message for you today. And that was birthed out of some trauma from PTSD to allow our women to be able to have a voice.
Appreciate that.
Hello, I am Dr. Carmen Johnson. I am the founder of Helping Ourselves to Transform. I'm also the director of Court Watch Judicial Accountability under Life After Release. And I'm also a policy writer. And thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. And we happy to have y'all with us. And Rita, welcome back. So question I want to pose to the panel, y'all. Again, focusing on what we're talking about here with the potential for clemency and pardons. This is for a long time been seen as something that happens as a president exits. Does anybody have any recommendations of how we can make this more of a part of a president's term? How can we build a process that throughout a 4-year presidential term that the Department of Justice is able to issue out pardons, and you can apply for a pardon at any point or commutation at any point. But what would you guys suggest that we can make this more of a ongoing process versus just something that happens at the end of a presidential term?
I've had this conversation before. I think we need to start back at the basics. And what I mean by that is just like when you go get a car, right? You got to go through some training, you got to take a test. When you come out of the system, right? I think there should be levels to being able to integrate back into society. As we go forth, right? Okay, let's say, for instance, I've been out for 2 years. At this level, I should be able to, and I hate to say it, I should be able to get a job, right? At the end of the day. I've seen my probation officer. I've done everything you've asked me to do. I have a job, right? Get the job. The second one is, okay, I've worked that job for a while. And again, these are levels. I've worked the job for a while. So now, how about I get an opportunity to vote? I've proven myself as a citizen. I've been on probation. I've done everything you've asked me to do. Can I get some of my rights back? And then as we move forward, right? Okay, now I can get a house. Because of course, at the basics of it, the job enables us to go into different directions. I've known people who've been homeless because they couldn't get a job because they were incarcerated, right? So I think there should be levels to it of giving us back our human rights to be able to be great standing citizens. We've done our time, we did what we're supposed to do, allow us back into it, even if it's at just different levels.
Right. Anybody else?
Well, I love what the sister just said. I'm not sure about the level part because there are a lot of people that are behind the wall that are emphatically innocent or have been wrongfully convicted and that was successful business owners and things of that nature, and they got caught up. And then they come home and they still have to go through the same process that everybody else has to go through. So I'm not sure if I like the level thing. I just think that mass incarceration needs to stop. I think that's the biggest thing for me is stopping that, and let's deal with the people that need to come home and the people that are home and deal with trying to get a clemency. Thanks.
There are levels.
Rita.
And so for me, I would say, being a DC resident, I've seen folks. I'm actually a Maryland resident now, but prior to, we got ballots in the mail. Like they came down and they gave us information where we can vote and have them mail out. Maryland right now, we're doing a whole campaign to let folks know, and some of the centers that were not aware, that just because you are a felon, you are able to vote. We have been pushing that in Maryland. So those that don't know, check with your states. Don't just assume because you're a felon or you've been convicted or you are in prison that you cannot vote. That is not always true. I know that for facts. I'm voting. I will be voting tomorrow before the early voting ends.
Yeah, I want to, one of the things is just to sort of pivot from some of the answers. I'm thinking about, when we talk about policy, like for people had to push legislation and policy in order to allow returning citizens to vote in certain states. I know here in DC, we developed the Restore to Vote Act that allow our DC residents that were incarcerated in the Bureau of Prisons to participate in our elections. But what are your thoughts on how do we turn the returning citizen, the formerly incarcerated, the families of formerly incarcerated folks? How do we, get people to become a true voters block? And if we're able to uh, create that voters block, what are the things that you think we should push for the most? Don't all answer at
Educate them.
once.
It's again, the word of the day is awareness. You got to educate them, right? Let them see the side of all the coins. And some feel like if they can't vote for presidency, then why vote? You still have other candidacies that's on that voting pool from your senators on down. So you need to make sure you know what you're voting for, why you're voting, and who you're voting for. Because at the end of the day, those votes count on how you're going to live in your community, how you're able to reintegrate back into society, and or whether it's for yourself or for your family.
I agree with that. But I would like to add on too, it's not just about the presidency either. I mean, I have my personal opinions about that, but we got to remember we have people in Congress, we have Senate seats. Like, to me, when you talk about House versus the Senate, there's some serious decisions that are made there. And yes, it can go to the president and be vetoed, but at the end of the day, on that floor, the awareness needs to be given to our people so that we can understand, like my sister said here, there are decisions that are being made without us because we're not involved even at that level of it. So the awareness and the education is critical.
Man, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
And
I'm sorry.
and we also have to educate our children. That's really, really important. And our neighbors that look like us, right? Because we think we know, but we really don't know. And we really need to educate each other that, who we look alike. We need to educate each other. It's really important. So thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, man, I want to ask you a question.
Yep.
Related to, like, obviously, you're a celebrity, right? And sometimes I feel like celebrities get somewhat what I would call an unfair sort of responsibility to speak out on certain things, or to take a stance one way or the other, right? How do you feel about that, and how do you balance that? How do you balance what you'll speak out on or advocate for, or something, or what you decide to sit out?
I feel like we do got a responsibility somewhat. You know, it's certain things that happen in our communities that, affect all of us. And whether you have the courage to speak on it or not, um, I feel like you should. Certain things it is what it is. When we dealing with police brutality. You see, my situation is a little bit different because I come from the street first. My energy may be different because I've been dealing with police shootings. One of my best friends is paralyzed by the police. I've been
Yeah.
dealing with prison. I've been dealing with all of these things anyway. So having a platform to speak on it when I can I should. I also felt personally that I wasn't doing enough a lot of times. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like we do have a responsibility somewhat.
Yeah, and when, like, so in a lot of my advocacy and me being aligned with, certain dudes, my spiel would always be, especially to people that were street aligned, when it
Mhm.
came to issues around like clemency or laws impacting those incarcerated.
Mhm.
Like, that wasn't really politics to me. That was street
Right.
business. That was,
Right.
dudes that,
Right.
you got men in jail, dudes that say that they
It's
come
a
from where
fact.
we come from,
It's a fact.
and that's why I've always pushed guys to use their voice around those issues, because to me,
Right.
that's street business. That ain't politics. We trying to help the
Yeah.
men and the women, that come from
It
where we come
makes
from.
it makes all the sense in the world. It makes all the
Yeah.
sense in the world when we talk about mass incarceration that been affecting us. I went to prison when I was 17, but I had already been a at-risk youth. I had already been to group homes and detentions. I'd already spent, a great portion of my earlier life going through these changes.
Sure.
So when we think about, guys that I was locked up with, that we went to jail at 16, 17 years old, that's just coming home now.
Mm-hmm.
Like we
Mm-hmm.
talking about 20, 30 years, like that it went by and they coming home and still have to get it together. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, man. Ladies, the question that I want to pose, and I want this question is going to be another question I feel like is important, from the female lens. Um, when you think about the reentry process as a whole, what are some of the steps that you guys would like to see? And I want to make this very gender specific with women that you would like to see. What are some gaps in helping women to stabilize post incarceration? Or you can even talk about what's going on in the BOP or in state facilities right now and around women. But like, can y'all speak to what you would like to see that could help women stabilize a bit more and fly post incarceration?
I would like to see more people getting involved with women that are coming home. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not sure if anyone are watching the statistics, but more and more women are going to prison, jails, camps, and cages. And so with that said, like Rita said earlier, it's like it's not enough programs or it's not enough love or support for us. And even if we went in as professionals or whatever the situation is, it's a nightmare when you come home. So I would like to see more support. And I would even more so love to see more support from the brothers to us. That is really, really needed. We need y'all love. We need y'all support. We need y'all help. And we need to not be left out. And thank you. It's emotional. Sorry.
Nah, no worries. We hear you. Yes, man. Any additional thoughts?
Oh, okay, then I guess I'll answer it.
Okay.
Carmen, I appreciate that, right? And we do. There, I spoke on it earlier where the system wasn't designed for us. So it makes it really hard to help us, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Out of retrospect, no disrespect to the men, and all that you all have done, what you are doing. But just know that when a woman is taken from the home is no longer a home. Okay.
Correct.
When a man is taken away from the home, that home is still standing strong and that foundation has never wavered. So let's understand that alone itself is that we need that help. We need that support. So sometimes when we lean, don't push back. Just let us lean. That's it.
Yeah. Agree. Well, you wanted to go ahead? You go ahead. Sis, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So let me just tag on to what Ms. Rita said. While I was not incarcerated, I do have a record. The problem that I had though was once I obtained that record, they said it was expunged. It really wasn't expunged. Really wasn't expunged. But what that did to me was it put me in a position with my children where I became homeless. Because there were financial things that were taken away from me as it relates to my job. There were a lot of things that I lost. And in losing that, like I said, we became homeless. A lack of information, a lack of support, not just from, people that I know, but even from, certain family members because they don't know what to do. They have no idea what programs are available. So I agree with that. And thank you for being here and telling your story and being transparent. But it really does hurt us as women. We're softer. We're strong, but we're softer. And there are a lot of things that we know seriously that we bring to the family dynamic that our children need and help us sustain to make them be stronger adults. The father is there. Yes, we get that. And we thank you for your strength. But there's a component that a woman brings to that table that's required as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully concur. I don't think that anybody will argue that the removal of a mom, especially as it relates to children, has a far deeper impact than the removal of a dad. And dads are needed. We're needed, of course, but the mother being incarcerated develops a different level of destabilization in our families. And I think, like you said, Rita, the system wasn't built necessarily to address female incarceration. Like Doc spoke to, we see female incarceration rising, and so we got to pivot. And the one thing that I would share with three of you, you know what I'm saying, like we got to look to y'all for guidance. And that's why I actually posed that question. Sometimes it's not that the powers that be don't want to change or want to do the thing; they don't know what to do. And we got to show them. Y'all got to lead the way. So, and we will do more as the men in this community, the men in this ecosystem, to help support you guys in any way that we can. So, thank y'all for raising our awareness around that. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. And Mano, shout out to Mano, shout out to everybody that was on prior, Governor Moore. And I'm going to bring on the Honorary Dr. Maurice Majeed, who helped coordinate this whole situation. And he'll bring us some next steps, bring us the charge of what we need to do. What's up, Doc?
What's going on? What's going on, good brother? First of all, thank you. You did an amazing job today. Everybody, all the panelists, the moderators, this was an amazing thing. But I want everybody to understand that this is a movement. And in a movement, there's a charge, right? So the question that we asking is, am I a citizen? All of these sisters, all of these brothers have done amazing things. The impact on our community, it keeps going, and we're asking ourselves, am I a citizen, right? So that's the question that we're asking. What the charge and the assignment is 100,000 pardons, right? So we know where we at, we know the temperature in the room. We know this is election season. We know we got to get out there. We got to get our voices heard. We got to get our voices elevated. So this is really important for everybody. I want to tell you right now, please go on to I Am a Citizen, the Instagram, okay? On that Instagram, you're going to see that you'll be able to fill out a petition that we have, because we want everyone to fill out that petition. We want to put pressure on everyone that can help this charge right here. What we're trying to do is there are over 6.3 million returning citizens that are in our community, right? And with that 6.3 million, and then the loved ones that we have, our sons, our daughters, our fathers, our uncles, our mothers, everyone, right? You have a base. We have a base, and this is what this is about, letting everyone know that we have a base. We want you to fight over us. Fight how you're going to be able to serve us, right? How you're going to be able to serve our communities. Today was really important because it's talking about what is happening in our front yards and our backyards. And returning citizens are really the heartbeat of the community, right? They are the bull elephants in the community. Like the sister said, when a woman goes away, the house is gone, right? So this is really important. So we really appreciate you all for being a part of this. But please go on to the Instagram. Am I a citizen? Fill out the petition, right? If you are eligible to get a pardon, go on the Instagram so we can show you how to get the pardon. We have so many individuals who want to help us out. I definitely want to thank my brother Tony. I want to thank my brother Paul. Everyone that came on today. This is so important. Am I a citizen? Yes, I am. Are you a citizen? Yes, you are. And we got to be a family. We got to be a community. So that's that charge. Brother Tony, this is what we're going to do. We love y'all. We love y'all. But let's act like we really love ourselves, like we love our community. And that's what we're here for.
Yes, sir. Paul, switch mics with Maurice, Paul. Switch mic.
We want to thank everybody that was part of this movement, but we want you to understand and know that we have George Washington students that's working with us to actually fill out these applications. So if anybody need any kind of assistance with it, please go and check in with our website, and we're going to help to the fullest of getting everybody to file as many pardons as possible, applications. Thank you.
Peace and love, everybody. Do it, Joe.
Appreciate you.
All right.